Good afternoon and good morning, and welcome to this very special conversation ORF is hosting on the French presidency and the prospects for the EU India partnership. We'll focus on the Indo Pacific, but the world has other plans for us as well. And to discuss this very important period of time and the possibilities of a deeper and more vibrant partnership, we have two very special guests with us this afternoon. Let me first welcome Minister Drian. He serves as the France's Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs since 2017. During the course of a four-decade-long political career, he has served as the Minister for Defense. He's been the President of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, and of course has been a member of the French National Assembly. Joining him to discuss the India part of this conversation is Dr. S. Jaishankar, who serves as the Minister of External Affairs in the Government of India. Prior to this, he's been a career diplomat for about 4 decades with the Indian Foreign Service and has served as India's Foreign Secretary, the top diplomat for the country before. And prior to that, he has, of course, also been in the United States, China, Singapore as our top diplomat. Now, outside of his tenure, he has had a brief stint in the private sector, and as many in Delhi would recognize, he would outrun a think tanker in thinking up political theories and concepts in his free time. He's also an author and a writer of some important publications. Just to set the context, ORF has been engaging on this very important bilateral for a while now. We put up a robust series of conversations during the Portuguese presidency. We hosted a live event at Bled in Slovenia during the Slovenian presidency. And the French presidency actually offers ORF and the entire community of thinkers to be more ambitious about our partnership with EU, a partnership that the minister has invested in, the prime minister has focused on, and has certainly been an outstanding, or a rather one of the go-to relationships in these rather turbulent times. And as turbulence continues, my colleague Harsh Pant, who's the director of the Strategic Studies program at ORF, is going to pose certain questions to the two gentlemen who are joining us this afternoon and try and decipher what lies ahead for the bilateral between EU and India, and certainly based on the foundational and strong relationship between France and India. So, Harsh, over to you, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you, Samir, and let me also welcome everyone who is joining us today for this very special session, and especially the two excellencies, Minister Drian and Dr. Jaishankar, for coming together for this very special session where we hope to be able to discuss some key aspects of the French presidency of the EU, India-EU partnership, as well as India-French engagement that has been blossoming and burgeoning over the last few years, especially. I would also take this opportunity to invite the audience to send in their questions, to send in their comments, which we will take up as we go along this conversation. And as Samir mentioned, at the time of great turbulence in global politics and global geoeconomics and geopolitics, we're at a very interesting juncture where we are looking at India and EU and India-France relationship that are widely seen as two important anchors providing stability to this rather turbulent world. So let me begin with the French Minister Le Drian and ask him to explicate a bit on the vision that France has for India-France relationship, but particularly now that France has the presidency of the EU, for what his vision is when it comes to EU and the Indo-Pacific, and what role he sees for India in that wider matrix as EU looks at for the next course of action emerging in what is widely considered to be the center of gravity of global politics and global economics. Minister Le Drian.
I'm delighted with this conversation with my friend Dr. Jaishankar, and I, of course, salute him. And I'd like to thank ORF for their invitation. I'd had the opportunity in April of last year to participate in the Raisina dialogue in India, and I remember the very great quality of the exchanges and discussions that were organized and the multitude of subjects that are at the heart of the relations between France and India. You know, France and India for years have been in a strategic partnership linked by relations of great confidence and friendship. And we are attached to strengthening the relations of a strategic nature between the European Union and the countries of the Indo-Pacific, in particular with India. And I would like to say that the French presidency of the European Union will allow for a strengthening of this partnership. You know that it is for the 13th time we are presiding over the Council of the EU, and we will be organizing, we've already started organizing numerous events around this presidency with a central objective, which is to assert a more sovereign Europe in a world of brutality, rise in powers, conflictuality. The challenge for Europe is to assert its sovereignty of a strategic nature, of economic nature, digital, health. That is the objective. That is the strength, the strong line of our presidency, that Europe and France play its full role around the theme of power, transformation of world relations, so that we be able to play along our own logic in the partnership with the Indo-Pacific in particular. And that is the reason for which there will be, in the course of the French presidency, a forum on the Indo-Pacific. It'll be the first event, the first time that during a European presidency there will be an event focused on the Indo-Pacific and the relations between the EU and the Indo-Pacific. It is a central element which obviously will be based on the fact that for a long time we've had a very special relationship with India. That, of course, was seen at the Porto summit under the Portuguese presidency. And this Indo-Pacific meeting will be on the 22nd of February next, where the High Representative Joseph Borrell will be in Paris. And I wish for the presence, of course, of our friend Dr. Jaishankar, as well as other partners, in order to mark this new situation between the Indo-Pacific and Europe, and to try and develop a contribution to peace and stability, regional peace and stability, and also in the respect of multilateralism, be able to promote a alternative mode of cooperation based on the rule of law. And the ministerial forum will be essential to start on concrete projects. What I wish is for this Paris Forum to allow for a concretization of principles that we share on the respect of law, but also a harmonious development as well as a post-COVID recovery. So those are the fundamentals of what we wish to do in the short term in our relations with Indo-Pacific, which will, of course, take support on the historical relations that we have with India.
Thank you, sir. And let me, I think now is a good time to turn to Dr. Jaishankar to ask him about both, I think, India-France relationship, because it has grown, it has burgeoned in the last few years from, we are economic partners, energy partners, broader strategic partners, and of course, security and defense relationship is pretty strong. And as France take on this role of the EU presidency, what are your expectations about the Indo-Pacific and about the bilateral as well as the larger multilateral frameworks that we are operating in? Dr. Jaishankar.
Thank you. Thank you, Harsh. First of all, let me say what a great pleasure it is to join you and the ORF at the event today. And I'm so glad that this is becoming a tradition because I do believe that it's important for think tanks and for thinking people to actually pay much more attention to the growing relationship between India and the European Union. I'd also like to, of course, give my warmest regards across cyberspace to Minister Drian. It's always a pleasure to talk to him, to talk with him, to other people. So I can't really think of a better partner to have a conversation about Europe than Minister Le Drian. Let me start with France. Yesterday, many of us watched the Republic Day parade, and we saw French aircraft flying overhead at the finale of the parade. Not just the recent French aircraft, but the earlier ones as well. And I mention that because it's a very visible example, really, of the strategic partnership between us. It's very easy to talk about concepts like strategic partnership, but if you want a normal, ordinary person to understand what it was about, those aircraft which were flying over our heads yesterday sent their own message. Now, I would also like to remind people that this is a relationship which has steadily matured, that it's something which goes back multiple decades, but which has really grown decade by decade. I think we need to remind people that after our nuclear tests, France was one of the earliest countries, or definitely the earliest P5 country with whom we engaged in a positive format. And since then, as I said, with every sort of with the passage of time, really the relationship has grown stronger. It's grown stronger in multiple ways. I mean, if I were to, because we use the word strategic partnership, there's defense, there is nuclear, there is space. In each of these, France has been a long-standing partner, a good partner, a reliable partner, and one with whom certainly it is the desire of our government to grow the relationship and take it to higher levels. It's not simply in a narrow bilateral area, though obviously the bilateral relationships do matter. If you were to look at our coordination in the UN Security Council, at the kind, where do we stand on the big issues of the day? Terrorism. How did we, what were our concerns about what happened recently in Afghanistan? I would suggest to you that though we are located in two very different parts of the world, actually on the big issues of the day, it's interesting how similar our thinking is. And that, to my view, is a very strong force which impels closer partnership. I'm stressing the strategic political issues, but I also want to point out, it could be trade, it could be, France was, by the way, one of the countries which responded very early to our request for students to be able to work after they get their degrees. It's been very positive in its approach to the Indian community there. So I can think of multiple ways, cultural, social, economic, technological, business, which really make a strong case. Now, having said that, I think today the relationship, which even otherwise is an extremely important relationship for us, acquires an additional facet as France assumes the presidency of the European Union. As you know, last year at the Porto summit, there were some major decisions taken, decisions about resuming our trade and investment agreement negotiations, about a connectivity partnership. In September, there was a Indo-Pacific EU EU strategy that was announced, and incidentally, we should bear in mind that France is both the chair of the Indian Ocean Commission as well as the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. So, given the India-France connect, given the fact that France has interest, has a presence, actually on both ends of the ocean space below us. They are there at the Western Indian Ocean, they are there in the South Pacific. They're very much an Indo-Pacific resident presence. Given the fact that on the big issues of the day, our thinking is very, very similar. I think strengthening this partnership and focusing it on Indo-Pacific is something which is very timely, it's very appropriate, which is why I very much welcome the EU Ministerial Forum that France proposes to organize next month. And of course, it would be a great honor to participate.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. And let me, I think both of you have mentioned how important Indo-Pacific is becoming and is at the heart of this conversation between India and France. Let me invite, Minister Le Drian for his comments on something which is, I think, on the minds of many Indians at the moment, looking at the situation in Europe. Because what is happening in Ukraine, for example, and there are tensions brewing there. What is your assessment of the situation there? And especially, I think the worry in some of the Delhi circles might be that, or in the Indo-Pacific might be that this would distract EU from the kind of focus that we had seen building on the Indo-Pacific. Perhaps what is happening on the periphery or right at the center, at the heart of Europe today, will distract Europe from pursuing its very ambitious multi-pronged strategy that it outlined last year in the Indo-Pacific. So I would welcome any thoughts, any remarks that Minister Le Drian might have on this very contentious issue at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you to my friend Dr. Jaishankar on what he said on the very strong relationship between France and India. Thank you for having reminded us that the Republic Day has allowed for the flying of French planes, the very concrete and visual translation of a strategic relationship that is very strong. Because in history, I think that France has always been there for India, whatever be the moment and the situation, the seriousness. Our partnership has never wavered towards each other, and we are in this very deep relationship of confidence, which translates, as Dr. Jaishankar rightly mentioned, by not only a collaboration of security and defense, but also very strong relations in the economic space fields. And I was able to note this in Bangalore when I went to visit the Indian teams less than a year ago, in April of last year. And then, dear friend, you also emphasized the importance of the collaboration between our students and also the importance of multilateralism and our collaboration in particular within the United Nations. And it is this same spirit that we wish to find again in the Indo-Pacific strategy, which is a European strategy, because the European Union has decided on a real project of collaboration between Europe and the Indo-Pacific. And obviously, in the Indo-Pacific, India plays a key role. And in this spirit, I'd like to come, before I speak about Ukraine, to come back to the forum that we will be organizing. Now, we want the forum to be articulated around three areas: security and defense, but also that of connectivity and the digital, and global challenges, and the participation of all the stakeholders in a certain number of essential questions concerning the common goods. We've already evoked these subjects to preserve an Indo-Pacific which is governed by the rule of law, and that the European commitment, a stronger one, will allow us to face up to the security challenges of this vast region, which, as Dr. Jaishankar rightly reminded us, that France is we're a nation of the Indo-Pacific, and the presence of security at the time of the forum be emphasized by the emergence of a coordinated maritime presence of the European Union. We're working on it, and we wish this coordinated maritime presence to allow for greater stability of the whole of the region and a better security. We want to arrive at very concrete options on the three areas of this forum: security, but also connectivity and the digital. And within the framework of the strategy developed by the EU, the Global Gateway, which aims at developing intelligent, clear-cut and safe links between the different actors. We want this Global Gateway to also apply to the Indo-Pacific. And the EU wishes to strengthen the physical connections, air and digital, between Europe and all of the Indo-Pacific. And we wish this forum to actually allow us to develop a concrete proposal, in particular in the digital field, because this will be one of the subjects of the roundtable that we will be organizing. And then the global challenges. We'll have the opportunity of evoking in the course of our conversation, where India, France, and Europe, in particular in the field of the blue economy, we wish for there to be a regulation, but also a valorization of the maritime issues. India will be invited at the CTEC week, which will take place in September of 22 in Brest, following the Ocean Summit that will take place on the 11th of February, which is upon the initiative of France. But the challenges of the blue economy is a key one for the Indo-Pacific. And I want to reiterate that we wish to work within this forum for the emergence of a production capacity of a vaccine for all of the Indo-Pacific, because the production of vaccines and health safety is a key challenge to which we can bring collective answers. We've already started to do so, and I also wish that we be able to, in the course of this forum, really use our experiences in the field of energy transition and be together for these common rendezvous. We've already worked with India in the energy field, which is absolutely essential, and we want to widen it to the different challenges in the framework of the Indo-Pacific. And the objective of the student exchange that I wanted to add to this, which is already very strong in the Indo-French relations. We wish to extend it to the Indo-Pacific space, and it'll be one of the major themes that we wish to see appear in this forum, with concrete results, specific initiatives, precise initiatives to come out of the general discourse, and to show how this Indo-Pacific solidarity, which is emerging, be able to, be in identified concrete actions, respecting, of course, the sovereignty of each of the states of the Indo-Pacific area. Now, the Ukrainian question is not going to penalize this political will that I have just asserted, although today this question is dominating the news. We are, of course, preoccupied by the tensions that exist at the frontier of Ukraine through the important deployment of Russian forces at the frontier of Ukraine and the Donbass, as well as Belarus. Russians need to know if there was any attack on the sovereignty, integrity of Ukraine. We cannot not act strongly, but we also want that the dialogue be pursued. There was a positive element yesterday in Paris, because the four diplomatic advisors of the leaders of the four countries concerned by what we call the Normandy format, the aim of which is to implement the Minsk Accords and the Paris Accords to find serenity in Ukraine. This meeting took place although for several months it was at a dead end, this format was at an impasse. So it was held, and the different participants, worked not only the ceasefire of July 2020 be respected, but also be able to make more steps in the political settlement of this crisis. Now, in the period that has just gone by, which was very tense, this is a small bit of optimism that I wanted to evoke. But the situation in Ukraine, of course, will not prevent us from pursuing our will to assert an Indo-Pacific, shared Indo-Pacific strategy in which the European Union, presided over by France and India, will have a determining role to play.
Thank you, Minister. Dr. Jaishankar, Minister Drian has laid out a very expansive roadmap, and he talked about multiple aspects of this relationship that French presidency would want to take forward. I would like you to touch upon, if you can, two particular aspects which I think are very critical and important. One is we hear a lot about the connectivity partnership and the Global Gateway Initiative. So how do you think, what role and what expectations India has from the connectivity partnership in terms of providing alternatives in the Indo-Pacific? The other element, of course, is trade, which is connected but also different in the sense that we are looking. India is pursuing a lot of agreements. There are a lot of ones in the offing, it seems. But given the long-standing expectation of the India-EU trade relationship, where do you see this relationship growing? And are we in for a quick trade agreement with the EU as well, or are we looking for some distance here that needs to be traveled before we enter into the final phases of those negotiations? So trade and connectivity, if you can touch upon those two issues.
Thank you. Let me go with the connectivity one first. I was looking actually at the principles of this European Union's global gateway. And the principles include democratic values, high standards, good governance, transparency, equal partnerships for local partners, green and clean projects, resilience, catalyzing private sector. The reason I mention this is if you actually look at our positions on connectivity, not now, positions which are 3, 4, 5 years old, ours has actually been a very, very similar approach, where we have actually stressed the need for transparency, for commercial viability, for local ownership, for environmental, ecological respect for territorial integrity of countries. So I do think about, in terms of principles and outlook, there's a very good fit between the global gateway and India's own approach to connectivity. And in fact, it is this very fit which has led to an India-EU connectivity partnership. Because again, if you look at it, this is exactly what we are discussing in the partnership. Now, the EU obviously has its own programs and plans. And in our own case, we've also been active in terms of promoting connectivity and development. And we do this, frankly, in many ways as a integral part of our policy. It's very much part of our, especially of our South-South cooperation. So it might actually interest you to know that to date we have projects in as many as 67 countries around the world. And even as we speak today, I'm talking of not of small projects, but of decent sized projects. We have actually 288 projects which are under different stages of implementation. So we do our thing based on similar principles. The EU will do this. And again, the EU has been doing it for some time. They've just, in a sense, made their policy more contemporary and focused. And I find, the best way of promoting international collaboration of like-minded countries is to work together. If to the extent we exchange notes and say, in this country we are hoping to do that, this is the requirement, would you focus on this and we'll focus on that. So there are ways of, shall I say, maximizing the value of what you are doing. If you can find a like-minded partner who will work in tandem with you, and that is something which we would very much like to do with the EU and with France. As regards the trade issue, free trade agreements are very complicated because there's an enormous amount of give and take across sectors. And But there are two particular challenges when it comes to EU. One, that it involves so many countries. So, you have to reconcile, harmonize, prioritize their demands as well. And of course, there are some non-trade issues which are involved in the negotiations. Uh, Certainly, I think it was the expectation of the leaders last year in May that the bureaucracy, the negotiators would pick up on their urgency and get to work, because our negotiations really have been in a freeze from 2013. And In 2014, when there was a change of government in India, we actually were keen to resume negotiations. I think there was hesitation on the European side, but the leaders finally took that call last May. So we have been, my understanding is something in our system which is led by the Commerce Ministry. My understanding is that the negotiators have been very much in touch, quite active. There's a lot of things which happen, not doesn't necessarily have to happen formally across the conference table, but there has been movement. But obviously, the expectation level is high. We would like to see greater urgency, faster movement. I can say that we are quite ready to do that, and I would point to the fact that there are some other negotiations which are going on with other states where we've actually made a lot of progress. So I certainly hope that adds to our credibility where Brussels is concerned.
Thank you, Minister Drian. If I can come to you for something that you touched upon in your presentation, in your discussion earlier, which is the health partnership between India and France, and especially in a world shaped by COVID. We had seen France responding to India's requirements during the very, very, very difficult second wave. Also, India standing up with its European friends during the first wave, helping out wherever it could. There was this. What possibilities do you see for this health partnership between India and the EU in a world that is being shaped by the health crisis at the moment? And also, if the EU, if France can lead the way in shaping this partnership by pushing for the recognition of Covaxin, for example, among the EU member states, is this something on the cards, or is this something that can be considered?
I come back to what Dr. Jaishankar was saying a while ago concerning trade and concerning the resumption of discussions. This was done at the time of the Porto summit, and there will be another summit between the EU and India in the second half of this year. And we are back again in a discussion. He knows this, I know this. These discussions are never very easy. The problem is to make sure there is the political will behind it, and the political will is deployed if each one sees their interest, and we are in that logic. We're back on to a negotiation. It will inevitably be a bit complicated because there are 27 member countries of the EU, and with one single partner, which is India. But we've already, with other countries, been able to arrive at results, and we will act in that direction. The path is sometimes difficult, but if the will is there, we will get there. We will reach. Coming back to health challenges, these are the ones that we share and that we will try and treat at the level of the Indo-Pacific space. One of the proposals that I would make during the forum in the month of February, in a few days' time, is to arrive at that what India and France, India and the EU, there be the creation of an Indo-Pacific campus in the field of health. This would be a first, and I think it would be able to favor exchanges, in particular in training, innovation. There is a pharmaceutical tradition in India which is very strong. In Europe and particularly in France, there is the same technological capacity, and then you have the need to assert that vaccine is a common good of humanity, and we have to carry this message forward together. And there to be a campus in this field, an Indo-Pacific campus that could take place in India, would be a symbol of this common will to make Indo-Pacific an area of sharing, of partnership. For the rest, I think the European Union in the field, the fight against the pandemic has never closed our capacity to export. We have exported as many vaccines as we have mobilized for our own requirements. And we have also initiated a strategy of donation for countries that were most in need, that didn't have their own production capacity. And we've also mobilized all of the world actors around the concept of Act A with the COVAX as a financial tool to allow for everybody's access to the vaccine. And we're in the logic of trying to respond to the objective that has been fixed by the World Health Organization, that is to vaccinate 70% of the population by 2023. And we must all contribute to that aim. And we are today at 50%, so there is still much ground to be covered, in particular in Africa. And I'd like to emphasize the excellent collaboration between France and India, in particular by using the medicine patent pool mechanism that allows for transfer of technology and avails of an office in Mumbai, and which works with a lot of laboratories present in India. And this is an initiative that the European Union is financing, and it comes under UNITAID of the UN. It's a second vector on which I think we should support at the time of the forum in Paris. And I note that the new vaccine is studied by the EU within the framework of the European Drug Agency. And as soon as it's recognized, because it's already been homologated by WHO, and once it is recognized by the European Drug Agency, it will be able to be used in Europe, and it will also facilitate the conversion of the validation of vaccines for all persons traveling. So we are in a positive collaboration because we have the skills, the competence, all of us, and to make sure that the vaccine is considered as a global good.
Dr. Jaishankar, we are in the last few minutes of this conversation, and there are a couple of questions that are there from the audience, if I may put them to you. One is about the possibility of Quad engaging with other like-minded countries in the Indo-Pacific. Is there a possibility for greater role, for example, from other countries like France, or even engagement with EU? How would a Quad platform look at those engagements? The other is, President Emmanuel Macron, when he in his address about the European French presidency of the EU, talked of Africa being at the center of engagement as far as EU's Indo-Pacific strategy is concerned. They would like to. There is an Africa EU summit which is happening in February, and is there a possibility of India, for example, collaborating with EU in third countries in Africa, whether in terms of connectivity or other possibilities? Do they exist, or are those possibilities certainly are they in the realm of the possible? If I may put those questions to you from the audience.
Uh, where the Quad is concerned, I can tell you so far, we haven't really discussed as Quad engaging other countries. I mean, obviously, as members of Quad, many of us have trilaterals we do with others. But as Quad, as four, do we engage a fifth or a sixth? That's something we haven't discussed. I mean, I honestly do not know what the views of the other three are. But in my own view, right now, we need to focus it. I mean, Quad is relatively new, and we need to spend much more time developing its own agenda, looking to see how it can be a better force for global good in the Indo-Pacific. So, my gut inclination would be really to get the Quad kind of working better, more ambitiously, more efficiently right now. On your second issue, which is Africa, look, it's a very very important region, and I don't mean that just as lip service. I mean, the fact is, we have the Modi government has actually opened 18 new embassies. In fact, almost all the new embassies we've opened abroad are in Africa. And we've really ramped up our development commitment to Africa, our training commitment to Africa. And in the visits that I've paid, my sense is there's a lot of work to be done there. Now, we have different historical traditions, so it's not always easy to mix them up and say, okay, let's go together to a place. I mean, it, it, it isn't as easy as that. Life is much more complicated. So, but I would have an interest definitely in coordinating with what France is doing on the connectivity side, on the development side, the green transition, the digital side. These are all areas definitely we could work together with a partner like France, because as I said, at the end of the day, for me, France and the EU are actually partners with whom the big picture fits. So we'd be very, very comfortable working in various regions.
Thank you, Minister Ludrian. I think that this would be perhaps the last question. One of the questions that has been asked from one of our audience, who's who's a member who is watching this, is when you look at the present geopolitical conflict in Europe at the moment. Russia and China seems to be coming ever so closer together. And given the challenges that Europe and the West is facing, NATO is facing, would it be not better to have some sort of a relationship with Russia, even if tactical, so that the broader challenge in the wider Indo-Pacific, which is the rise of China, can be managed? And how would you look at this conundrum in terms of the changing geopolitical balance in the Indo-Pacific? And I think this is a global challenge in some ways. Thank you.
An observation of substance in the way in which we look at the understand the Indo-Pacific area. We, that is the European Union, of which France is carrying out the presidency. Now, we believe that we need to develop with the countries of the Indo-Pacific, with India in particular, a partnership which is respectful of sovereignties and which avoids falling into forms of suggestions of a power over a given area, space, and avoid falling into a kind of confrontation. And the right means of avoiding this risk is to make sure that we advance on concrete projects on the three themes that I mentioned a while ago. If we have a coordinated maritime presence, if we have projects of connectivity, if we have projects of joint action in the health field, we are in the partnership in respect of sovereignties and giving up not in a logic of conflict or suggestion. And I think with India we can carry forward these concrete messages which overcome ideological, stance of the relations between countries and ensure stability in the Indo-Pacific area. On Russia, we believe that Russia is in Europe. We consider that it is for Russia to not behave as a power of disequilibrium, that is the role that it is playing currently, and that it become a power of stability. And to go in this direction, we need to come back to the fundamentals of the commitments that were taken at the time of the USSR in the Helsinki commitments on security in Europe, which assert the sovereignty of states, the unviability of the frontiers, and the right of each one to make the alliances it wishes to make. These are principles that were validated by the USSR in 1975, and they were renewed by Russia in 1992. So let us come back to those principles that Russia has validated in order to have a true stability in Europe, of which Russia is part and parcel. And that is the message I'd like to convey, which is essential today, rather than witnessing an alliance which is a bit dangerous, and even for Russia, between Russia and China.
Thank you. I think we have we have passed our time, and this is a very interesting conversation. And I think what comes out very categorically is the intent on both sides to take this relationship forward, not only bilateral India-France, but I think also embedded in the larger European framework. So we look forward to the French presidency of the EU and the accomplishments at the end of it. Good luck to both Minister Drian and Dr. Jaishankar, and thank you for participating in this very interesting conversation. Thank you to all the audience who were here with us today and for your very interesting questions. We could not take all of them, but I think we took some of the more interesting ones. Thank you, everybody.